Way before the coronavirus was declared a global threat, I was able to fly to Europe, making quick stops as I transit through international gateways like Moscow Sheremetyevo Airport, Amsterdam Schiphol, and my dream destination, London Heathrow Airport. If you've seen that vlog, that was just a summary of an absurd journey to fly to the UK just to use the restroom. Where did it all begin? How did my journey start? And what actually happened in one of those flights? Here's my first leg of my travel to Europe, where all the adventure began. Keep it here on Airline Travel and Airports. My journey begins at 4 a.m. in the morning, arriving at Manila International Airport, where I'm taking the first flight for the day to Hong Kong aboard my country's flag carrier, Philippine Airlines. This is the first leg in my series of flights to Europe, and as early as now, there's just an air of excitement as I'm getting to fly again on board PAL's state-of-the-art A350-900 aircraft. Boarding process soon began, with my heart racing as I embark on this ridiculous journey of making a quick run to Europe with Hong Kong as my first stop. But even with an exhilarating start, I somewhat felt at ease seeing familiar faces among the crew members like Flight Purser Marilen, who's been featured in one of my previous blogs. I just felt assured I'll be in good hands in this 2-hour flight. On the way to my seat, I passed by the business class section, looking at seats that surely provides a higher level of comfort, with each that can turn into full flat beds and has a convenient direct aisle access. Further along, it's premium economy, to what I consider a cross between business class and coach, but still gives you some space to stretch nonetheless. And yes, you guessed it, I'm seated in coach. Flying with a budget but still needing a bit of comfort, I simply chose PAL for this route among other carriers. For those who know me, you know where my favorite spot is. Somewhere at the back, where I feel I have the most privacy, as well as being near the rear galley where I can mingle with crew members before and during flight. Now, speaking of mingling with the crew, I just had to ask Flight Steward AJ for some insights about an emergency incident that happened before to one of PAL's 777 aircraft, where one of its engines caught fire shortly upon taking off from Los Angeles International Airport.
Sir, question. You've heard about the incident about this 777 that happened in LA.
Yeah.
If it happened to you, how are you trained to handle the situation?
With regards to that yung situation na ganun, sir, we're trained naman for that. We undergo 3 months training, minimum 3 to 6 months training in yung initial training. So, yung mga instructors namin talagang dinitiktik kami dun every single time. All aircraft, all scenarios. As in like, as a takeoff, landing, that's the most critical phase of the flight. So, pinupo po kami dyan, sir. I mean, yung procedures.
Pero, sir, personally, as a human being, you get scared.
Definitely.
But you still have to be on your toes.
Yes.
Right.
So you have to be prepared all of the time, especially during when we're seated in the crew rest, crew seat.
After some insights from crew member AJ, and with passengers still boarding, I took the time to explore the rear galley some more, still interacting with crew members who are cordial enough to show me around, along with what goes on at the back as they prepare for this flight.
Dito yung mga loads dito. Dahil sa gitna. So, kinukuha ko yung mga loads dito.
Okay.
Hello, ma'am.
Ganito to, may center table kayo I know. Basta may stairs, alam mo na kung saan yan.
Well, it sure is nice seeing an innovative setup not usually found in rear galleys of other Airbus aircraft. On one side, in-flight meals are prepared ahead of time, as it is a challenge for crew members to serve food in this short-haul flight. If I'm not mistaken, before the pandemic, PAL's the only airline that served full hot meals on the Manila-Hong Kong route, with other carriers serving only boxed sandwiches. After a quick visit at the rear galley, I eventually settled down, this time exploring what I'd find interesting in my economy class seat. Yes, you can't miss noticing the large IFEs that's in PAL's A350 aircraft. But I'll soon toy with it after I finish digging through my seat pocket. Now let me just see what we got here. Now remember, this was taken months before crisis struck the airline industry brought about by the pandemic. And back then, PAL would generously stock every seat pocket with items other than just safety cards. These days, you'd hardly find these items. But before, These are stuff you'd usually discover in your seat pocket. An air sickness bag, a Mabuhay in-flight magazine, and a sky boutique featuring a variety of duty-free items sold on board. Meanwhile, our plane soon gets its pushback, and along with it, safety demo is shown through our IFEs. But soon as our engine is started up, a strange noise is heard, unusual enough to suggest that our plane's engine isn't working the way it should.
Okay, so we just heard from the pilot that the engine, they just turned up the engine and we're going back to the ramp. And I'm not sure if it's going to be delayed or what. Hopefully, we can continue back.
Now our plane is towed back to the gate, leaving me worried about my connecting flights to Europe. Now I just had to hear from the captain himself.
As of the moment, we're trying to rectify our problem. So this will take about 10 to 15 minutes. Thank you for your patience.
Just a hint, very, very minor.
Alright.
Just want to make sure that of course the flight is safe.
At least may story ako sa tawag.
As you
What I appreciate about PAL is how crew members, particularly in-flight purser Marilyn Reyes Estaniel, would go around the cabin assuring passengers that things will be alright. Talk about their signature service of buong pusong alaga. Soon, a message from the flight deck.
So the moment we're able to rectify the problem, and in 2 minutes we'll be closing doors. And we'd like to apologize for this delay. Thank you. Cabin crew, doors to arm.
All doors armed and cross-check.
Finally, we're good to go, with the engines blowing out white smoke that came as a surprise.
Ladies and gentlemen, as a reminder, in preparation for our departure, please ensure that your seatbelts are securely fastened, seat backs are in the upright position, and large electronic devices such as laptops stowed and window shades are open. Your cabin crew will be coming around to assist you in preparation for our departure. At this point, we would like to offer our apologies for the delayed departure for flight, and this is due to the further servicing of our aircraft to ensure the safety of our flight to Hong Kong. We do appreciate your understanding.
Shortly, our plane gets to the runway and we were taking off for Hong Kong. And so my flight to Hong Kong pushes through, after a bit of suspense earlier. I can't imagine all the hassle I'd go through if this flight got cancelled, disrupting my connecting flights later on to Moscow, Amsterdam, and London. But thank God we're on our way. Anyhow, newspapers are handed out at the start of in-flight service, but for my entertainment, I quickly check out my seat's IFE, which felt similar to using a tablet. As I browsed through countless selections of movies and TV shows, crew members began distributing immigration cards to passengers entering Hong Kong as their final destination. Still, I'm glued to my IFE, browsing through movies, games, and its interactive flight map. Now on international flights, I often order special meals. For a limited time, PAL offered this Japanese bento box back then for an extra fee. With special meals like this, you get to be served ahead of others. And by the time crew members were serving the rest of the cabin, I was indulging on a meal bursting with oriental flavors, with that pinch of wasabi making me breathe through my ears. This very special in-flight meal was simply worth it. Flight from Manila to Hong Kong is only about 2 hours, and shortly we could already feel our aircraft descending. With it, passengers are encouraged to freshen up while crew members begin cabin preparations for our arrival. Not too long after that, we were finally touching down at Hong Kong International Airport. It sure feels nice to be back here again at Hong Kong's Chek Lap Kok Airport, being able to spot a variety of airliners as we make our way to the ramp. Despite the excitement, I'm still reminded that this is the first leg of an absurd journey where I'm continuing on to Europe the next day, transiting at airports there without a visa. Now I just had to thank some crew members for the gift they discreetly gave me, which I can use for my London to Manila flight.
Okay, Luisa, okay, AJ, thank you very much for a wonderful service. Thank you. Hindi ko na-expect Thank you.
Sige sir, ingat.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Yes, that's how thoughtful PAL crew members are. Upon learning about my crazy agenda of flying to Europe with an ultimate mission to use the restroom there, and taking a 13-hour flight back to Manila afterwards. Now once I stepped out of the plane, the environment was different from home, and every step I took made me feel closer and closer to my mission. I've made it this far today, and I'm going even further in my journey tomorrow. I planned to spend overnight at this airport, but I wasn't allowed to continue to the departure gates as my flight is scheduled the next day. So off to finding a hotel nearby, where I can spend the night and relax, but not before I accomplish one of my missions to try out some dim sum here in Hong Kong. After picking out on authentic Chinese food at the airport, I eventually proceeded to arrivals to get me a short ride to a nearby hotel where I can rest the entire day in preparation for a very long flight tomorrow. With protests ravaging Hong Kong that time, tourism there has severely dropped, that you can snag rock-bottom deals on both airfares and hotel room rates. This is where I was able to get a good room near the airport for only about $25 US. Now with 2 queen-size beds, how I wish I could have brought along a few travel buddies to accompany me on this trip. With the sight of the sea in view from my window, I decided to take a quick stroll from my hotel and towards the shore. That's where I got to reflect whether to turn back from an itinerary that I've never done before, or to take the chance of a lifetime and come back with good stories to tell. This is Mitch Young, bracing myself for Moscow, Amsterdam, and London the next day. Thank you for watching.